Mātai ki te rangi ko puanga, ko Matariki, e rua ngā whetū e tohu ana I te tauho Māori. Welcome to Mata o te Arero, ko Stacey Morrison ahau, and this is brought to you by te Māngai, Pāho and Irirangi te Mutsu. Ko tā Matariki he whakahuihui I te tangata, he whakamaumahara I te hunga mate. Matariki is a time to lift our eyes to the stars, to remember those who have gone before us, and to reflect on the aroha and yes, the mamai that remains. Tēnā korua, my guests today are reo and tikanga exponents Niwa, Milroy and Heeni te mate Koiwi, and they know that journey of grief intimately. Last year, Heeni lost her 16-year-old daughter, Janie, Taiiringa roimata, and Niwa has farewelled both of her parents, te Wharehuia and Ongo mai a Niwa, as well as her big sister. Now, both of you have found solace in whakapono and mātauranga Māori, and also shared those insights on social media, offering guidance and aroha to others who are navigating loss. Nō reira, tēnā korua.
Tēnā koe.
Today, as we talk about grief and healing and how the wisdom of our tipuna can help us as we go through one of life's hardest journeys, ngā manaakitanga o te tauhou kia korua tahi.
Tēnā koe.
Kia ora Niwa, I'd like to start with te kōrero mō Matariki, me tana hāngai ki te hunga mate. How does Matariki help us remember people?
This time of the year, this season of the year is a time of stillness, where kua tau te Māori I runga I te whenua. It's a time for us to reflect back. I think when that stillness happens, it's like the clock ticking in a quiet room. We start to hear the things that we've been carrying over the year that we might not have been paying attention to throughout that time because we're so busy and we're attending to other things. So Matariki brings about that time where we can reflect back on those things that we have been carrying. It's also a time where we recognise Tara Mainuku, te waka o Tara Mainuku, who's journeyed across the sky. And if you don't know the story of Tara Mainuku, it's a celestial waka that travels across the sky for 11 months, and his job every night is to send out his kupinga, his net, to gather in the souls of those who have passed on. And coming to this time of Matariki, he takes them to Rarohinga, comes back up with Matariki, sends them to Pohutukawa, Pohutukawa being the star that we pay attention to honour our dead. And when we pay attention to Pohutukawa, during our hautapu ceremonies, one of the things that we do is we honour our dead and we call out their names. It's a time for reflection, it's a time for renewal, but without remembrance, renewal becomes shallow. So it can be a tapu time. It is a tapu time. We're honouring our grief, we're honouring our love, we are connecting ourselves with celestial beings, we are honouring the fact that the love that we had physically has now become a spiritual love, and we have to extend that love beyond what we knew before to something. And it gives us something to hang our grief upon. Yeah, that's how I sort of look at Matariki time.
Because we say rata kua whetūrangi here, we talk about our wairua becoming stars, but it's actually in this process of Matariki that it happens. Ne?
Yes. And I also look at it that when Tara Mainuku has gathered up the souls, I always think about Tāne Nui Arangi, or depending on where you're from, Tāwhaki, who is ascending the heavens to the Pūtahi Nui o Rehua, the uppermost heaven, is that they get a chance over that period to shed away ngā herenga o te ao kiko, and they become more freer to rise up and seek God, or whoever your God is, unencumbered. It might be Hine Nui Te Pō. They get to sit with Hine Nui Te Pō in the night sky, and we get to see them still. Yeah.
Kia ora. And then, kia tātou, kei te mata o te whenua, it's also about that process that we are going through and feeling like their wairua is still close, and then it comes to the first Matariki that you'll experience without your beautiful girl, Janie. Kei te rere pēhe o whakaro?
Kind of in two minds.
The first one is that obviously it's still unreal that she is not here in the physical sense, but knowing that you can feel her around, ko te matangaro e kōrero ana, you know that she's near and you know that she's not far, and then you have a whole myriad of memories, and it's those memories that remind you that you had a deep connection, or you had a pure love for somebody that you truly love, and somebody that grew in the womb and then obviously has taken on this journey. And like, I know everybody experiences death in so many different forms, and one of the tangible aspects of te ao Māori that we have is Matariki, and we've been seeing, I've done Matariki since I was maybe around 8 years old, so I'm a kura kaupapa Māori kid, we understand how it is, but in the sense that the whole nation does Matariki from these last maybe 3 to 4 or 5 years, and it's just a way to be able to mourn, because even when I was younger, nobody really does kawe mate like they used to. You used to have your tangihanga, and then you would go to your other marae or places that you needed to go and take your mate again. And Matariki is another way to be able to mourn and grieve, and not so much let go, but allow the ascension of your loved ones to go to where they need to be, which is what Niwa has explained. And you know the pathway, and you know that everyone navigates this path. If you have grown up being Māori and you understand he tata arunga, he tata hoki a raro, that everything is connected, even though we're told that, you know, they're light years away, we still know that within the mindset, the Māori mindset, that when I think of a loved one, I know that yes, kua whetūrangi here, they are now stars, engari ka taia tonu te karanga mai, i a rātou kia koe anō. And you can say, like as the Northerners say, here mai, here. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm in, last week was quite emotional, but this week,
Nā te mea karanga here, te wairo o tō kōtiro ki te atamira, ne, because your girl was honoured beautifully by the winning champion school.
Yeah.
Her own kura, te kura kaupapa Māori o te koutu. Tell us about that experience of her being carried and remembered on the stage at the Kapaka Nationals. Ne?
Yeah. Well, this is the mindset. We're talking about being in two mindsets. When you look at a tamaiti or you look at a child, you know that there's potential in everything that you see. You also can see that when you look at a child, that you can see their whole life before them. You've already imagined, you've already thought of the transformation of the child. You know how they're going to navigate life. You know that they could either be a doctor or they could be a reo expert. And in a school like Te Koutu and like many other kura kaupapa Māori, that's the thought leadership, and that's the ideal that's already put into that type of system. So Te Koutu, for me, watching them last week is one of those moments where you go, it's reaffirming that the system, this kura kaupapa system, being able to speak te reo, being able to understand all the mātauranga, or being taught whakapapa, concepts like Matariki, that we're in the right place, and that we know that with these types of tools that our children will be able to navigate their own lives. And so last week, watching Te Kura Kaupapa Māori o Te Koutu is more about them showing us, adults or generations above themselves, that our belief is that the tamaiti guides us, or the next generation guides us. And so watching them is more like I'm still quite overwhelmed. So speaking out or sharing this journey is helpful for our whānau, but it's also a way to be able to have that wider wānanga with all of us, and be able to share our insights, share our knowledge, like what we have been told to do from our tupuna or from those just above us, to say, hey, let's stop, let's think, and let's reflect. what do we all need to do in the collective consciousness of everything to be able to keep our traditions alive, our culture, our way of being, but to also see how does that sit in the wider sense of the world.
So that's the sense of urgency, I guess, in the kōrero that you've shared. And because you have a background as a broadcaster, it's been natural. But I guess what you've just explained to me is why you've felt like it's important to explain that grief will feel, this taumaha, will feel like a person is being dragged down from inside. And so you've given voice to, I guess, the tools of what you call mātauranga Māori being a healing system. Niwa, and describe to us other ways that we have healing within our systems.
I think we've often looked at tangihanga, hurakohatu, karanga as ceremonial type things. But when we look at them from a lens of grief, there is something special about each and every single ritual or ceremony that's happening. So karanga, for example, is kei te karanga tātou ki te mate, and we're bringing ourselves back into connection and relationship with those who have passed on. Our whai kōrero is giving voice to our pain, is giving joy back in our memories of those people. We often recite about what this person used to do. We have a laugh together, we have a cry together. And even going into our whare tipuna, we have whakapapa, which brings us back into connection. I think during the grieving process, that connection is important. Remembering and having rituals that brings us back to our grief, brings us back to our love. It also allows us to share that and have it witnessed by others. I think it's an important thing that we have these spaces, they are tapu spaces that honour our grief. And our wairua hinengaro tinana needs this repetition, particularly our hinengaro, needs this repetition to help us integrate what's happened to us, the loss that's happened to us, because our mind creates these roadmaps of how our life's going to go. It has our brain has predictions about, oh, mum calls me on this day, I get a text from my darling on this at this time every day, and we have these roadmaps of how our life usually is, and then all of a sudden those predictions that our brain is making about how our life goes isn't matching up with reality. And it's a big shock to us. Ā tinana, ā wairua, ā hinengaro. And so these repetitions of returning back to our grief and acknowledging our grief and honouring our grief is important for that integration back into ourselves, but also he taura here tērā i a tātou ki tō tātou mate, ki te awairua, ki tō tātou whakapapa, me te maharake, that this is who we are. Because, man, we become untethered when we're grieving. We lose sight of who we are, or what, because that roadmap's changed, and we don't, and it's like, oh. But our tikanga brings us back to, hey, you've got a whānau, hey, you've got a marae, you've got whenua, here's some spaces for your healing and spaces to honour your grief. We can't take it away from you, but that repetition makes us stronger when we carry it. It creates time markers along the way for us to give shape to what our grief is looking like. Without that untethered feeling, that feeling of lostness, and if we look at the neuroscience, I don't mean to get sciencey about it, but science does match up with our tikanga, is that when those that roadmap is gone out the window and our amygdala switches on and we become stressed. And because we're stressed, our cognitive brain, all the resources get like you said, flooded to the hippocampus, which is all the flood of memories, and we get stressed out. So we're not thinking straight. We're forgetting our luggage at the airport.
Which is what happened to me this week.
ka aroha.
Because our brain's trying to reconstruct our lives around what's missing. And I think our tikanga brings us back to reminding ourselves, okay, I'm here on the roadmap of my new life, and I haven't got quite to that rori yet or down to that area yet, but I'm still acknowledging where I'm at, and that's healing is in the remembering rather than the forgetting that it happened.
Or giving a time limit of how long you get to grieve.
No time limit, yeah.
But to your point, Heeni, around Matariki being nationally celebrated, and so does that gives us an opportunity for everyone to bring their grief and have a place and have a process. Do you believe there's collective health and well-being in that?
Absolutely. No matter which whānau or which friend we all are connected to, they speak about these things. Somebody will go, where do I go? What do I do? And the national commemoration and those ceremonial and that ceremony helps you go there and do that mahi that you need to do to be able to grieve again, and it's okay to grieve again. I feel like sometimes there's a time limit or there's an expectation that you need to grieve within this certain amount of time, or that when the tangihanga's done, you can't grieve again. And so this is another window to be able to spend a moment to be able to grieve your loved one again. Very much like how the stories of our tupuna are. There are those stories where, they'd use the kuku and they would continue crying, or they would lament and write songs, which is what Te Koutu have showcased to us last week. And it's the 2026 version of a lament. It's in the waiata form, or it's in, it's using classical or music of today and rhythms of today, but with the concept that kei te tangi tonu, kei te haku tonu, te ngā kaukamutu te tinana, me te wairua. So there's just so many processes, and I'm on this side thinking am very grateful to have been shown these types of tools from a very young age. We all know that this isn't just a one-off incident. Everybody experiences something like this. We're not the only ones. I had my grandmother tell me stories about all of her sisters had died before they were even 42, and they had all died and passed away of cancer. And then so experiences like that being shared, you kind of go through the world thinking, I need to live life, and I need to give it all that I can. And with the health and the wealth that we have already, and you try your best to be that good example of trying to stay well, so that your children or the next generations can see this. Otherwise, you can see the other side, and I totally understand the other side of not being able to withstand the threshold of pain, grief, mourning, and where to alleviate that. Where do you go to? So the ceremony again for Matariki helps be able to alleviate that. There are different tikanga, like where you use ahi to be able to heat the body back up again, or the wairua back up. Then there's the opposite. You go and hop into the river or into wai to be able to bring your hot-tempered self down. Our tupuna understood these techniques, and the science, as Niwa's been saying, is catching up with that. So the concepts are there, and they always have been, the theory, but it's also been lived experiences. And so my grandmother had taught us this, and she appreciated life. And so it's about being around people who do appreciate life. It's not about ignoring grief or ignoring those who have passed and that pain that's inside. But hey, Matariki's one way to do it. And like I said, like we've grown up in Awaho as well, and so everybody goes to the river when they've felt some sort of mamai or some sort of momori, and then they have the belief that pekehaua or our taniwha will come in and help out and show you the way, and our tupuna have been doing that for many generations, from the time of Ruai, or bringing the two taniwha into our awa. And so it's about understanding that there are places and that there is access. And so he mihi tēnei, ki te hunga ko whakapoare i tēnei āhuatanga, so that there is access for those who may not have access to the knowledge bases that we've been taught.
Tika tā. And when you talk about the taiao, I know Niwa, you've talked about this online as well, about how the taiao can offer so much healing. So tell us about what you found yourself drawn to do that everybody can do, lying underneath the stars.
Yes, lying underneath the stars was one, because I just felt like I had room to breathe. It reminded me that they're up there, kua whetūrangitia, and I can send my love somewhere. There's somewhere for my grief and my love to go. But also I did a lot of floating in the river. Mahi ake ai nā raru I runga I au, kia rite ai au ki te wai, so that, I forgot I was talking Māori just then.
So that you can be like water.
Relieved, be like water and just flow. Te haere ki te ngahere, walking in the forest. I just read on Instagram today about the healing that there was a Japanese man who did his whole life study on the healing that you get from trees. Breathing them in, walking amongst them, te kōrero kia rātou, te hono kia rātou, he oranga kei roto I te taia mo tātou katoa, te moana kei reira he tino rongoa te haere ki roto I te moana. For relief, for screaming into the waves. I remember screaming into waves and kia hopu ki nai te mamai o roto I taku ngākau e ngā ngaru o te moana. Ka kawe atu ki tawhiti.
So that tangaroa could take away and just hear those screams and match them with power of the waves. I think also maybe people need to prepare themselves mentally for the part of the hautapu when we call out names of those who passed in the last year. I was present one time where someone had lost their twin and he said, I don't want to say his name because then it's real. So we may need to mentally prepare.
We all get shown the roadmap. You know that there's a beginning and then there's somewhere along the journey, and it doesn't matter whether you're prepared or not prepared. You just know you have to move, and you have to carry on. That is one thing that you would need to do, and I say this because last week I was in the crowd and I've watched the song for my daughter be performed before, and I just thought that I was going to be okay, and then we were in there and then something comes from within you, he tangi apakura. And it's not about normalising apakura, but there is a stigma around, I don't want to have that ugly cry, you know, and some people are comfortable with it, but it's about reintroducing perhaps with us just as Māori or just as friends and whānau and hapu and iwi, that our tupuna were like this and that it's okay to do that. And some will go, no, kei te pai tērā. But, you know, when you're a young person, and I'm talking about my daughters now, I know ka pāngia rātou te whakama. There's some form of shame or embarrassment when you're crying in front of a whole lot of people, and we're in the Instagram social media era where, you know, everybody's watching everybody's step, and when one kind of wrong move happens for them, that whakama can set in. And so for me as a mum at the moment, it's more about allowing these spaces to be able to cry. It's okay to cry publicly too, but there's also just be wary of our tamariki is what I'm trying to say, because people haven't caught up that wailing is okay, but we don't really see it. You'll only see it perhaps on the marae or by queer, and some people are just don't have access to queer who do that all the time, so it doesn't feel so normal even though we know it's normal.
It was interesting because at a rangatahi tangihanga, my daughter said, everyone said you made them cry, Mum, because you were wailing, and I was saying, well, ka tika hoki, he apakura, he apakura. So it's that what we are considering is correct and right. And to your point about social media, both of you have been bold and brave about sharing on social media. Why is that?
I think, you answer because I'm trying to think.
I feel when I started to talk on social media, I think when you're in the space of having te reo, being brought up with mātauranga, you kind of feel alone after a while, and you kind of know that there's no one else to kind of talk to or speak to, but you know that by doing this you understand that perhaps it's not that is there someone out there, it's just, well, this must be the next part of the journey of emerging mātauranga. You know that it must need to be shared in some form because there's no one around that's doing it. And so as for me, that's one part of it. It's also, because I'm a journalist too, it's about journaling the journey and those emotions, but also that type of storytelling and documenting it, and then looking back perhaps on the map or on the journey and seeing, well, where could, in terms of like wayfinding, what is the other part of the mātauranga that needs to be formed. And at the moment I'm using social media to be able to write, which I have throughout Janie's journey with regards to karakia, karanga, and this year is more about apakura and writing aripoto or shorter forms of tangi. And so when I am really overwhelmed with emotion or tangi, you know, I don't have my nan anymore to go to. I have my husband and I have my children, but I also have the sense that I don't want to project that mamae anywhere. And so by writing it in the form of a small piece of writing, it can timestamp that mamae or that way of alleviating. And then I just put it up on social media because we're all a part of reo revitalisation, and that by putting those words up, that may help regenerate in some form te reo.
Yeah, I think mine came out of, I saw a post and it triggered me, and I thought, whoa, there's some mātauranga that's missing, that people are totally missing the point of some of our tikanga and why we do things the way we do. So that first post was in response to something that triggered me and made me scared that the reasons behind our tikanga is being lost, and there are beautiful reasons why they exist, and our tipuna had this whole culture and system set up for the well-being of Māori, for all of us, the well-being of us all, and for those things to disappear, it would be a great shame. I think they need to all be still existing, living, however that looks within your whānau hapu iwi is going to be different, but as long as the crux of why that tikanga existed or why that exists is still there, then that's important to me.
And still we wānanga. Social media isn't the only place to wānanga.
No,
absolutely. Remember that as well. Tō ingoa, Heeni, kei te piringa ki te kōrero mo tō whai i te ingoa te mate Koiwi. Tell us about why you, as a whānau, had actually changed your surname.
I think because it's time's passed, I think it's been 1.5 years since we had our wedding. And obviously our Māori nei, te waka moi te tangata, when you're bonded with somebody and you have your children, you're already married, right? And so being married on paper, we obviously wanted a day to help celebrate our whānau, and we had this whakaaro, just like what Niwa has been saying, what are moments we can all share with regards to keeping our whare happy and having that wairua ha kua through such a hard journey and such a really pouty journey. Someone came up with the idea, one of my friends came up with the idea, you're getting married. And I was like, oh, well, okay. But then obviously even a week out from the wedding, we still didn't know what we were going to do. We just knew we were going to have a beautiful day, show a beautiful union, and have all our family together to obviously be there for Taiiringa and for Janie. But I also knew that, oh well, what else can we do? Because we'd always thought about what are some tools, what are some ways to keep our whānau in that I don't want to say happy, I don't know what the word is, engari, ko te ora. We needed ora in our whare. And so that was one of the things to regenerate that type of ora. So had a wedding, and I came up with the idea with myself. I actually didn't tell my husband that was going to happen. But he said, you just do what you got to do, because he's always been like that. He's so supportive of our way of living. He wasn't raised speaking te reo, but he's always been supportive. And so I just one day just went, we were writing our vows, and what are our vows? He had his vows. And I just thought, I want to gift him with the name Te Reu Koiwi, which means the song. Like, Te Reu is a kupu from up in Te Aupauri and the Far North Peninsula, and it comes from a hapu actually called Te Reu Makutu, and which basically means someone singing along, a makutu. So I knew that that's what that meant, and I just thought, well, I'll give him the name Te Reu Koiwi, which is the healing side of the bones, and that's just in relation to the karakia we had built and all of the writings that we ever did for Taiiringa in the spiritual sense. And then I, for myself, would go, well, I'll have te mate koiwi, so that we could see both sides and not ignore the fact that she went through such an aggressive haerenga, and to talk about these things. Because
that is the name of her illness as well.
Because that's the name of her illness. She had a bone cancer, but also by giving it the name te mate koiwi, it timestamps, just like how we've been talking about these roadmaps, and that this is what happened at this time. And then we would then build all of this mātauranga that we've built around her journey, which is even going through the cancer journey in the hospital, and all of those parts would all be associated around that time stamping, so that perhaps, and it's not so much for this generation, but it's like when my grandmother told me about her sisters. It's about making sure that that story lives on, so that our mokopuna and our next generations can see that and build upon that mātauranga again. So, yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
He whakaro Māori ake nei ne. Niwa, in terms of remembering things, not just what is considered good or bad. You know, it's in a lot of our names. People are called parekura. People, we remember the fullness of life, not just the things that are easier to describe.
Yeah. I roto I te ao Māori, I roto I tō tātou ao. Duality exists in everything. There's light, there's dark, there's life, there's death. So when we're talking about, when she's talking about the two sides of her story, that's showing the duality that exists, and that we acknowledge that they both exist. And that acknowledgement is important for us to integrate what has happened to us. If we go about ignoring it, it's ka tipu bene te iro tohia tātou he, ka mate tātou I tērā. But being able, like I said, that repetition is like going to the gym and lifting heavy weights. We lift the heavy weight again when we have the ceremony. We lift the heavy weight again, and we become stronger to carry our grief by, paying attention to it in these different moments and different parts of our lives. So in her wedding, she's paying attention to it. At Matariki, she's going to be paying attention to her own, what she's carrying. And in that, she becomes stronger and is creating the roadmap for how she's going to move from now on in her life. And like I said before, the renewal of her life and where she moves to now is nothing without the remembrance of where she's been. We need to see where we've been and what we've been through in order to garner all the strength, garner all the lessons that we get out of it, and turn it into something beautiful. Like she said, we can always go down the other road, but the ability ki te tuitui I ngā mea katoa, ngā momo aho katoa o tō ao, nā āhuatanga ko pā ki a koe, ki te tuitui anō I era mea I tī haia e tēnei mea te mate, ka hanga anō I tētahi korowai, mou anō I roto I tēnei momo āhuatanga is powerful, I think. Yeah,
well, that's the beautiful thing about whakapapa. And when you meet people and you ask them, ko ai koe, ahu mai koe, awai. Then it helps you form a connection or understand what your placement is in the world. It's not compartmentalizing, but it's more about, okay, this is who you are now, this is what you are, and this is where you might be placed. And it just helps you be able to lock in to, even if it's a kaupapa or a project or mahi, or even today, us here on Mata, we understand how Mata comes into play, and then we understand why it's important to talk about these things. I feel like by understanding whakapapa, by understanding that there is rangi papa, te pō, te ao, light, dark.
Yeah, he oranga kei roto I te kōrero mo te mate. Kōrua, you're both a light and you share these very, I guess, deep things so beautifully, and you do light up rooms wherever you go. Nō reira mihi nui ana ki a kōrua tahi. Ha kōrua kupu aki te tangata I tēnei wā o Matariki. What would you like to encourage people to do this Matariki? Aha koa ko ai, aha koa no hea. Heeni?
Ko te mea ke pea, ko te kite he awa no kei tua. Matariki can bring upon sadness and pauri and all of those things. I think it's just always a reminder that if you are going through a tough time, that just remember, if you hold out a little bit longer, there's always going to be light on the other side. There's piki, there's heke. And to understand that that happens, and if you feel overwhelmed, please reach out. Because the biggest thing is that, we want you to be a part of all of these ceremonies, to be, but we also want you to come out on the other side of Matariki being optimistic and ready for the new year to come, and not be burdened by perhaps some of the hardest things that you might have gone through in the year gone by. It's not about letting go in some form, but it's more about, hey, let's do this, and if you don't have that kaha, just please reach out.
Kia ora. And actually when we're crying, it's usually dark at that point, so no one can see you. Katahi ka hua kina te rangi, and then the dawn comes.
I'm going back to your question where that person asked, how can I prepare myself? I don't feel prepared for this. And I think that's the whole point. We can't prepare for this overwhelm of emotions. Therefore, let it go, let it out. There's healing in allowing your grief to be expressed, whether that be through the reo, whether it be through writing, whether it be through tangi. There's healing to be found in our hardship. There's a poem by Rumi, and he says, the wound is where the light enters. And I didn't understand that for a long time, until the light started to enter from the wound that I had from losing my parents, losing my sister, and losing a long-term relationship. There's stuff that you learn that you didn't realise you were strong enough to carry, strong enough to do. And for me, this is a time of remembrance and grieving. It's a time for renewal as well. And it's the remembrance part that makes our renewal more beautiful.
Ko kōrua anō nei ko Matariki kei te pai, ko kōrua kei te pai kōrero nei e kore e pau ngā mihi kia kōrua tahi. Tēnā rau atu kōrua. Ka mutu tēnei hōtaka e konei. This has been Mata o te Arero. Ka nui te whakaute ki te Māngai Pāho me irirangi te motu. Noho ora mai e te iwi mānoatia a Matariki.